screw that. That's silly.
I think
That's
it's
silly. Now, okay, so let's talk opportunity, fear, where opportunity comes in, and we'll go from there.
I think that, well, I'll talk specifically about the iBuyer component. When it came to our market, we had to evaluate, was this just chaos? Was it truly a disruption? Was it something that was picking up market share? And as it started to ramp up and pick up market share, it became something that we had to address. And for me, looking at it from the perspective of saying, all right, well, if it wasn't relevant, the consumers wouldn't do it. So if it is relevant and it is something the consumer is interested in, then maybe we need to evaluate and say, maybe we need to do a better job. Maybe we need to have this path for the consumer, so we need to address it. And it's become an opportunity for us. It's been a huge opportunity for us.
Awesome, and I think everyone on this panel agrees. So I want you to share a little bit about what you do and the idea behind it and how it's benefited your agents.
Sure. So at Keller Offers, we are an accelerator of Keller Williams, and Gary wanted to provide the agents with an iBuyer option. So at Keller Offers, we do that internally for KW agents. They come to us in our program, and we provide them with instant offers. And we feel that it's important because the whole concept behind our program is that the consumer has a fiduciary throughout the process. So they understand all of their options in a very granular way, and they can make informed decisions.
I think it's like we just talked about in the panel before, the fear really, it either captivates you completely and you're like, oh, so much opportunity around this fear, or you just get scared and pretend like it's not gonna affect you. So talk to me about your thoughts on this and how it's just opened up so much massive opportunity.
Sure, well, there's been a few different studies, right? And so I think in the Phoenix market, about 40% of the consumers now are looking to an iBuyer before they even put their property on the market, but only 6% of them are actually going through with that offer, right? And the Houston Association of Realtors just did a similar study, and they found 41% of sellers are interested. And so the opportunity is obviously out there, right? The market is there. It's just how is it addressed, and everybody takes a little bit different approach to that, addressing that.
Right, and I think the importance is how can we simplify it for the consumer, because obviously it's information that they want, right? And how can we make sure everyone's educated when you're going into that next listing appointment to know they've already done that probably, and if you don't bring it up, it's just kind of silly.
I think that's a huge point, and a lot of us overlook the idea by just saying, oh, there's a small percentage of people that actually sell to an iBuyer, but the reality is, there's a massive percentage of people that have a conversation with an iBuyer.
Right.
So the question is, if they're addressing the consumer at the top of funnel, the reality is you may never get the opportunity to have a conversation with the consumer because they've been guided or had direction by whoever they interacted with at top of funnel, so they never got to you. So you may look at it and go, all right, well, there's a small percentage that are selling this path, so I don't need to address it. But the reality is there's a huge percentage that are having a conversation at that point that you're not part of the conversation. And we know in this business, if you're not part of the conversation, then you're not relevant. I mean, the reality is there's all these things going on in the market, and if it is addressing, or there's something going on in your market, you have to address it, and there's a lot of people I'm watching that aren't addressing it, and they're being, their models are being completely disrupted to the point that really in the next 4 to 5 years, they're not gonna be in the business anymore. Because
I feel like you're like biting your tongue a little bit, because then I quote you, wait, let me see exactly what you said. If the consumer is using it, it means we suck at it and need to look within. That is something that you said, right?
That's true, because you have to look at the way that we've been servicing the consumer and say, if the consumer didn't see this as a need, they wouldn't go and investigate it and they wouldn't actually sell it. So there's a reality is like, do we need to reinvent what we're doing? And if you're not going to reinvent what you're doing, should you really be in the industry anymore?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's important also to say that there's been some fear among agents about the concept, not understanding it, not knowing what role they can play in it. So for us, it's important that we empower the KW agents to understand the process, to know how to speak to their clients about it, to empower their clients to make informed decisions, because if you don't understand something, then of course you're going to shy away from it. So our goal is to give them all of the tools that they need so that they can have those conversations and make sure their clients understand the process.
Makes sense.
Embracing it is key.
Right.
You can look at it as competition, or you can look at it as a tool, right? There's two different ways to approach it.
Right.
Right.
And with fear, or with, I'm going to add this to my tool belt and go out and utilize it.
You all are the authorities on this, and I'm sure that last night you were laying in bed and thinking, oh, I really want to share this when I'm on stage, because so many people don't understand this part of it, and it's just driving me crazy because you guys are fighting that fight every single day. So what would you say to the audience when they're like, what the heck is this? This is crazy. It's not okay.
Yeah, well, I think in number one, and I think all of our programs, the agents are at the center of the program.
Right.
And so that's important, right, that we keep the agent in the center of the program. And then again, utilize it as a tool, right? It might not be the right opportunity for every seller out there, but at least know what the opportunity is when you're going out to speak with sellers to say, we have this program in place, whatever it might be, depending on which program you're using, but we have this program in place. We can utilize this, or we can go on with the traditional listing approach, but either way, it's another opportunity for that seller that they didn't have before.
Right. Galen, tell me, if you had the opportunity, which you do right now, to debunk any sort of like this doesn't work or misconceptions about this particular topic, what would you have to share?
I would say that iBuyers are just cash offer buyers, right? And they've been around for a long time. And if you just embrace that and learn what you can about their processes, it may benefit your client to utilize them. But I think if you're the one that's leading it, it's about relationship building, and you do that every day. So with our program, we try to teach you how to lean into that and do what you do best, which is own that relationship. That is something that no company will ever be able to take from you, the relationship that you have in that living room. So if you lean into that, learn about it, and just own it and don't be fearful of it, you can utilize the tools that you have.
That's awesome. Talk to me about statistics, because you told me a little bit about the success that you've had at your brokerage. So
when we rolled out the program originally, what we actually do is we partner with the iBuyers and we present those offers to the consumer. So we took the position of saying, all right, our job is to educate the consumer, a lot like we've been echoing up here on stage, is instead of taking the role of saying, oh my gosh, they wouldn't want to give away $20,000, $30,000 to take this path of selling, is taking the position of saying it's our job to educate the consumer, let them decide what they're going to do, and really help them understand how to get from A to B to C. And this is truly a path of selling. So what we have seen in rolling out the program is we started out, I guess it was about 6 months ago, in aggregating offers, and we were blown away at how many consumers, after being educated, truly wanted to take that path. And we started saying, all right, well, this is a viable way of selling, not for the entire market, for a portion of the market to sell. So we wanted to partner as tightly as we could with bringing these cash offers, right, whether it is from Open Door, Zillow, or OfferPad, are all in our market right now, and presenting them correctly, educating the consumer on what this would look like, and helping them get from point A to point B, because that's really what it's all about. It's about supporting the consumer on their journey.
How do you coach your agents into that? Do you have a lot of pushback?
To begin with, we did, but we had to wrap a lot of training and a lot of systems around it. So we have a lot of staff support within the company where we're supporting agents to help them get those offers, present them correctly, put them into packages, things like that. So it's a nice, easy workflow. Instead of training the agent on the little nuances of getting the offers, we take that out of their, them having to do, and we do that for them. We're just trying to equip them to get to an offer so that they can present it to the consumer.
I think it's just really about like simplifying what this is. It is there. It's just, isn't it funny? You guys are sitting up here like, why are we even talking about this still? Like, it's here.
Well,
we need to figure it out.
To the point that was echoed, I think that you actually mentioned, which was a really good point, is there's a fear component.
Right.
Like, until you really understand it, if you've been through it, there's like, you're fearful of what is my role, what do I do? Do I have a purpose here, right? And when you realize there's a very viable purpose, and that is to represent the consumer and educate the consumer, and then you can bring parties together, and there's this wonderful thing that happens that's called a closing, and this glorious thing that we've done for years in the industry, and then all of a sudden you get paid a commission for it, for representing the consumer, right? Like all of a sudden it starts making sense. So it was getting over that hurdle of helping agents like walk through those steps of saying, all right, here's the steps to the process. We're going to educate you on what it means, how it works, how you get compensated and why, and how to educate the consumer. And when you started doing that and the wheels started turning, all of a sudden it just started making a ton of sense, and it just, it's really reshaped how we run as an organization in Atlanta.
Nice.
And I think you brought up a good point, right? It's really that education of the agent on how to use it properly and how to, not approach it with the fear, but how do you utilize this? What's the proper conversation to have with the seller? It's not for every seller, but here is an opportunity that might be there for you if you don't want to do open houses and keep your house clean all the time, or if it's an estate or any one of those various, reasons that are out there. It's just having the agent be able to have that conversation with the seller to say, here's an opportunity, but if this isn't for you, that's okay. We can go on with the traditional listing.
But I think it's important that you understand that just because they enter into an iBuyer contract does not mean they're going to stay there. They often fall out in repair ask periods. So if you are there guiding them through that process, they're going to look to you and ask you, what are their options now? Of course it's going to be to go to market. So if you embrace it and you're not fearful of it, you're going to guide the seller in what they need, and you're going to know the details around it. So that's what we're really proud of with Keller Offers, is that we help the agent understand all of the components of it so they can be informed and educate their consumer.
I would almost go with a different stance, not different from what you're saying, but kind of like our narrative that we're having up here. A lot of times we look at it like, should we go get an offer, or should we embrace this way of selling? If you actually flip it on its head and you go, well, wait a minute, you have a fiduciary responsibility to get all offers.
That's right.
So if you know that there's someone up the street that will give you an offer, you should get that offer as an obligation, bring it to the consumer, and let them make the decision. Right? Like, so there's kind of two ways of looking at this, and too often we look at it from the direction of saying, well, let me decide if I want to do that. I say, well, wait a minute. This is the seller's decision. It's your job to equip them and educate them on what it would look like on the different paths. But if there's 6 ways of selling your house, your obligation is to present all those offers, and this is a viable way, right?
It should be part of every listing presentation.
There's a data component too to it. You need to ask your seller, do you want your data in every database of every iBuyer out there? Because yes, they want to go and do what their seller they need to do on behalf of their seller. Representing them is a key component. But if the agent is the one procuring those offers, their information is in that database and not their sellers. So data is an important component. It's a privacy issue for a lot of sellers. You need to lead the charge and help them understand that piece as well.
That's a really, really good point. I hadn't even thought about that before. Talk to me, because you gave me some stats when we talked on the phone. How many deals like this are you actually seeing executed within your business?
So since we started, we've aggregated probably about 12 to 1,500 offers that we've presented. So
Over
those
what
offers that
time
we've
period?
actually, about 6 months.
Okay.
By a little bit short of 6 months. We had a ramp-up stage, we had training stages, but that we've run through about 1,500 of those offers that we presented. Now the percentage is about, if you look at all of the offers, just instead, I don't want to classify them by who we're getting them from, but about 10% to 15% of those, we have people that engage in them, and then a portion of those do fall out, like through the inspection periods and things like that, a portion of them do fall out, but it would blow your mind, like it blew my mind when we're actually doing the numbers and realizing how many are actually being taken, and that's what gets me to the point of thinking the reverse of it and saying, well, we have a responsibility of presenting these offers because we can't make the decision for the consumer.
Right.
So about 1,500. And then about 10% of those go under some form, 10 to 15% go under some form of contract. And then a portion of those, I'd say about maybe a third of those fall out.
Got it. Who in the audience has lost a potential deal to something of this nature, like a listing? Hi. How did that feel? Not great, right? Wow. So she still got paid. I don't know if that happens very often. So looking, and hopefully that was, a while back, but if you had gone in proactively, and said, hey, here's what you may find if you go here. I already reached out for you. This is what's in front of us, which is not something that any of us are really used to. We just need to be much more proactive, I think, in our presentation skills, right?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that any of the agents, our Keller Williams agents, are not afraid of going and getting whatever their offers their seller needs, because in our program, they're compensated on the transaction and they get the sign back in the yard for reselling the property. So it's a little bit different. That's a relationship that we have with our partner OfferPad that's been really great in the process with us. It was important to us to make sure that the agent is the center of the equation truly in every aspect, and I feel like our program has accomplished that. So for us, that's an important key component, because you work really hard for those leads, and we want you to inform the consumers so they are making informed decisions with you helping them through that process. That's a key component for us.
Yeah, and so many of these programs work so well with us as agents. It's just a common misconception that they're against us, when in reality it's really not the case. What else do you have to share?
Well, then there's really two sides to this as well. It's a marketing tool, right? And so it's not just when you go to the listing, you can utilize this program. These types of programs can be used to generate listing leads. And so that adds a whole nother approach to marketing to help drive leads to our agents as well. So I think that's important. And I think our programs are slightly different than some of the others that are out there, than that they're multi-buyer programs. And so, your open doors and your offer pads, those are a single buyer system, whereas in our platforms, we have multiple buyers in there so that sellers can potentially get multiple offers. And so that's a little bit of a different approach as well.
Yeah. Isn't it nice, though, to see our industry advancing in such a way?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah,
just
really.
put it on its heels, embrace it, lean into it, learn all you can about it. I mean, it's your industry, and so you need to decide the direction that it goes, own your industry, and take back control of that.
What I love, though, is that with all of us, the agents at the center of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
where maybe when this, conversation first started years back, it was maybe people outside of the industry that were, bringing this in, and now we're making sure that the agents are part of the conversation.
Right.
And that I've seen in most of the markets is that's the relevancy. You cannot approach this market, this industry. There's so many things going on with it right now with technologies and innovation and changes the workflow of the transaction, things like that. You can't approach it with fear. You have to approach it with,
right.
hey, these are opportunities and there's benefits here. There's things I can learn from this. I mean, there's great training opportunities and partnerships that happen through these things. But at the end of the day, what ends up happening is the total addressable market. You have a small portion of people that go it on their own, and they always have, and this is reality of how real estate's always been. And then you have a small portion that would never veer from working with their specific agent they've always worked with. But there's this broad center of like this addressable 75–80% of the market that want to be educated and want to be guided, and they've always wanted that. So when you take that position of saying like, my job and my profession is to educate a consumer, is to help them down this path, whatever the path may look like, you have a brilliant future, you have a brilliant career, and regardless of if it's iBuying, if it's a new tech platform, if it's visitor intelligence or whatever it is, these are all opportunities to help grow your market share and grow your addressable consumer base.
Galen, tell me if you have any agents within Keller Williams who are maybe pushing back a little bit, like what's happening over there? What is the pitch that you have to them on the value of what
KW
you
agents
have to offer?
pushing back?
Yeah.
We don't have KW
None.
agents pushing back. They are very, very excited about the program because it keeps them in the equation and it allows them the opportunity to learn the fundamentals of all of the different programs so that they can speak to their seller from a level of certainty. There's nothing worse, because I've been a broker for 20 years, and so there's nothing worse than sitting in front of a client and having them ask you a question and you don't have an answer. And so our main goal is to keep them educated on subtle nuances, ways to message particular things. We help them with their marketing pieces. We do all kinds of things with them, and they give us excellent feedback. They're very engaged in the program because KW is a huge training company in and of itself, and Gary has always promoted that. But within Keller Offers, we are here for Keller Williams agents. We exist to benefit them in everything that they do around the iBuyer concept or anything around Keller Offers. So we want to make sure that they have all the tools that they need and the information that they need to succeed.
Well, let me ask you this, because I don't want anyone in the audience to be like, what the heck have they been talking about for the last 20 minutes? So can you give me like a really quick, just summary of what Keller Offers is? I'm going to ask each of you that.
Yeah. Keller Offers is an accelerator of Keller Williams. We are the iBuying and concierge divisions of Keller Williams. And so Keller Williams agents come through Keller Offers program. They get the education on the different components in the different divisions. And then we are there to help them with messaging. We help them with marketing. We get them the iBuyer offer. We help explain to them the importance of data and privacy around that. They do have a fiduciary to their seller, but they also have a fiduciary to inform their seller about all of the data and the privacy issues surrounding that and their information being in all of these various portals. So we take it very personally to be there for our KW agents because we appreciate all that they do every day for every consumer they work with.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Express Offers was developed to be slightly different than some of the other iBuyer programs out there in that we are a multi-buyer platform. And so we are partnering with buyers across the United States that have various buy boxes, some buy and hold, some fix and flip, some multifamily, whatever it might be. And our goal will be to have that nationwide by probably Q3 or Q4 of 2020. And with that, then our agents can now utilize that when they're out on a listing appointment to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, or Mr. Seller, Mrs. Well, whatever it might be, we have this program available for you, and here's an opportunity. Would you like to utilize this, or would you like to list your house in a traditional manner? Okay. And so it's just there for another tool. All of our agents have training on it. We have a very in-depth training course, and I notice we have 45 seconds left, so I'm going to make sure that you have time.
Okay.
So I'm Craig McClellan. I have a firm in Atlanta with 2,500 agents. It's a Better Homes and Gardens real estate metro broker. So a little bit different than the franchise models. We built a program in-house. It's called Instant Move. Instant Move is going out and aggregating offers, multiple offers for the consumers to present to the consumers. And we wrapped around that with technology, with a lot of marketing assets, with training components, with pieces to support the consumer and the agent in going down the path of educating that consumer on, what does selling to an iBuyer look like? What does it look like getting an instant offer? It was something that really needed to be addressed in Atlanta because we have a lot of iBuyers in Atlanta, and there were a lot of these houses were being bought in Atlanta, so we saw it as a very viable thing. And I don't know how you can translate that to other markets in the U.S., but really in Atlanta, I'll tell you that either brokers are coming alongside and building that out, or they're going to be getting out of the industry. But the way we took it was pulling multiple offers and saying, hey, it's our fiduciary to pull all offers so you know all of your different opportunities.
Which anyone can do now. So I think just the theme here is embracing opportunity and learning how to grow from it. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you.